here we are in June, the month of the shortest nights and the longest days. So let's see what's going on. Well, the reason it'll be the shortest nights is that we have the first day of summer coming up on June 20th. And often we celebrate the seasons here at Griffith Observatory. So I don't know who it will be this summer, but it might be Dr. Reitzel. And so what we do is on our walkways on the west, we have inscribed lines that point at the sun set points for each of the seasons, and also some important moon setting points too. But anyway, so we have events at noon, local solar noon, I should say, which is close to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and also at sunset. In the evening sky, in the constellation Boötes, the herdsman, a constellation that looks like an ice cream cone.
It looks like it should be called booties.
And or a kite. There's a comet right now called Comet Johnson. So the constellation makes a very convenient way to find it. So in June, it's going to, or actually this week, it'll be very close to the bright star Arcturus, which is just about tied for the brightest star in the northern hemisphere of the sky. And so if you've got binoculars in a really dark sky or a telescope in a decent sky, it's a beautiful sight. And I actually got to see it from Big Bear. And Jared, sitting, one of our cameramen here, got beautiful photographs of it too with his telescope. And so here's a recent image of it. And we see here the main tail of the comet, but we also see a narrow tail pointing in the opposite direction. And it's called an anti-tail because it looks like, you know, something pointing opposite the main tail. It's just an optical illusion. This comet is almost opposite the sun in the sky from us, and we're seeing the dust tail spread out, and it actually loops around behind the comet over to the other side. And actually, 2 days ago, it was perfectly, we were going through the plane of the comet's orbit, so it made a perfect line through the middle of the comet. Anyway, this should be bright for another few weeks. Amateur astronomers, of course, photograph Jupiter a lot, and so here's some recent images by Christopher Go, who's an amateur in the Philippines, and he uses a 14-inch celestron telescope and beautiful images of the red spot. Also, and actually this, in fact, while you're sitting here now, something like exactly like this is happening right this moment. The shadows of Jupiter's moons cross the disk, and tonight actually the shadows of Ganymede and Io are crossing the disk of Jupiter. Saturn is beautiful. This month it will be in opposition. It's opposite the sun in the sky on the night of the 14th to the early morning of the 15th. That means it will rise right when the sun sets and set right when the sun rises. But a number of other interesting things happen. There's something called the Zeiliger, or the opposition surge, Zeiliger effect, I should say. And if you look carefully, you can see that the rings are quite a bit brighter in the slower picture than the top. And that happens for about 48 hours around opposition. So if you look at Saturn for several nights in a telescope around the middle of this month, you'll see the rings suddenly get a lot brighter relative to the planet. We see this even in the Cassini images. This is an image taken a while ago looking at the rings, and we see we're opposite the sun, so we're seeing the sun reflect in a way. It's just the reflection opposite the sun is a lot brighter than the other regions of the rings. If you imagine Saturn shrunk off into the distance and just going through that little region, we see the entire ring system light up like that. The other thing that's going on is it's just about summer on Saturn. In October, the rings will be as tilted, the northern side of the rings, I should say, will be as tilted as much towards the sun as they ever can be. And this is a very long cycle. It takes 15 years from summer to winter on Saturn, and then another 15 years as it completes its nearly 30-year-long orbit. So not only do we get opposition, but we get an opposition with the wide open rings. On the early morning sky, it's actually a great time to see the Milky Way If you're out in the desert, you won't see it from Los Angeles. Also, the planet Saturn's setting, but Venus is coming up in the east at that time. This is the Milky Way is seen from Big Bear. And actually, right next to where Jared was taking his pictures of the comet, and other people had their telescopes set up, and the Milky Way came up. This is about 3 in the morning last weekend. Venus right now is just about half lit, and it will start looking gibbous. It will look kind of like the moon does a few days before full over the next few mornings. So a good time to see it. We have one meteor shower coming up. This is the Delta Aquariid shower, and it happens around the last couple days of June, although it actually is a long shower. That's its peak, when you might see maybe 12 an hour or so, but it lasts from now until late August.